BMW i3 is dead. Long live the i3. In 2021, BMW discontinued production of the BMW i3. Is it really gone though? That's something we're going to check in today's video. Welcome to Wings, Wheels, and Wires, and we're going to talk about the afterlife of the BMW i3. But before we do, I think we've got to address the elephant in the room. Should they have gotten rid of the BMW i3?
Why
did BMW get rid of the i3? Was it the price? Was it the range? Was it the style? Let's look at some of those options. Was it the price? Well, at $46,000 as a starting price for an EV with such short range, it was not very competitive. But the BMW i4 that they're replacing it with is $11,000 more. So if it was for the price, they've only dug their hole deeper. It does have longer range though, so that might be part of the thought process. Did they get rid of it because of the sales? Well, sales did hit their peak for BMW i3s in the US at 11,000 in 2015 and have steadily been decreasing down to less than 2,000 in 2020. So that would be a possibility. But here's the thing. Global sales have actually been steadily increasing on the i3. So this would make sense to stop selling it in the US perhaps, but it wouldn't make sense to stop production altogether. Did they stop production because of its short range? The BEV only version in 2021 was only 153 miles. But this doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense that that would be the reason they ended it, because BMW does still sell the Mini Cooper SE, which is their electric version, and it only has a range of 114 miles, which is notably shorter. And if this is such a terrible idea, why did Mazda come out with the MX-30, which has a maximum range of 100 miles? See, the range thing isn't as big a deal as people think. I'll have another video on that. When I post it, I'll put it up here somewhere, okay? But the reality of it is, the range wasn't the problem. And as we get into this video, you'll see that that range issue was probably a lot less, could have been a lot less of an issue. Another possibility is that they would have removed it to not cannibalize sales on the i4. But this also doesn't make sense, right? If you're trying to clear up space in your lineup and you're wanting to move towards electrification, then maybe you should get rid of an ICE car instead. Especially since the two weren't actually competitors for one another. The BMW i4 is a sedan and it starts at $55,000. This is a hatchback compact car. This starts at $44,000. So they're in different price ranges. They're different styles of cars. You wouldn't be cannibalizing one for the other. So this isn't an excuse either. So my question is for y'all, why do you think they got rid of it? Go ahead and throw it down in the comments down below. What do you think their rationale was for doing this? Sadly, we'll probably never know an official reason why the car was discontinued. And at the end of the day, I guess it doesn't matter since it's been discontinued. The reason doesn't matter. But we as consumers can have opinions on whether or not they should have done it. All right. I think a big key piece in this is everything on the planet, including cars, have to either evolve or die. And I think this is where it really gets tough, because for me, I would love to see them continue making the i3 forever, right? But it's a sad reality that in the 8 years of its production, it didn't evolve at all.
Performance-wise, the only real changes they made were changing the color of the roof trim periodically and changing the shape of the high beam headlights, changing them from incandescent to LED. They also adjusted the battery chemistry to get progressively longer ranges in each generation. The 2014 to 2016 BEV only got 81 miles of range, whereas the 2017 to 2018 had increased to 114 miles of range. This is an increase of 35%. From 2019 to 2022, they increased again to 153 miles in the BEV only. This represents a 34% increase in range. If we project this pattern out, the next generation would have a 33% increase in range, which means that the 2023 to 2027 BEV would have a range of 203. Remember that number because it's going to be important later.
Anyone who has either owned or driven an i3 knows it has a lot of front-back wobble, right? And part of the reason for this is the short wheelbase. By lengthening the wheelbase, this would make a more stable ride, but it would have a much bigger advantage. If you extended it by only 11.81 inches, you could actually add another set of battery cells. Right now there are 8 modules, and you could extend it out to 10 modules. Now, what would this do for you?
Let's take a look at our hypothetical 2023 to 2027 BEV with its range of 203 miles. We'll divide that by the 8 cells that it currently has, giving it 25.375 miles per cell. And we'll multiply it by our proposed 10-cell model, giving us 253.75 miles, or 254 miles.
Indeed, a reasonably ranged vehicle today. It would be pretty competitive going along with the Leaf and the Bolt. So I think that would be really great. Go ahead and put your comments down about what do you think about this evolution of the vehicle and how it would have changed things. Go ahead, and while you're at it, hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. That would be absolutely awesome. Don't forget the notification bell too. All right, now the problem with this change in design is that it wouldn't be quite as simple as I'm making it sound, because the reality of it is the way this vehicle is structured with no B pillar, if you lengthen the life cell area or the seating area, you'd lose some of the structural integrity. So what they could do, however, instead is keep the life cell itself the same, and then move, actually lengthen the rear area that doesn't require the B pillar, and maybe even lengthen the hood area just a little bit. This would give you 2 benefits. One, you could have a larger frunk. Every i3 owner knows that would be excellent. Also, some of this extra space could go towards lengthening or adding more of a point to the front end. The very blunted front end is probably one of the things a lot of people don't like about the i3. Also, it is not very aerodynamic. So if you could increase the aerodynamics on that, put more of a slope or point to it, that would help a great deal. Moving on to the afterlife of the i3, right? Sadly, it's gone. It itself is not coming back, but its ghost is everywhere. Let's start with, because it was a so iconic looking car, some people may have loved it, some people may have hated it, but because it's so iconic, many applications and sites and everything have that vehicle as their symbol. If you look at both the Volta and EVgo charging apps, they have an i3 on there. Even though Tesla's far more prolific, but it doesn't have that iconic look that just says EV, right? So this is one way you're going to see it, is that image isn't going away anytime soon. The next way that the i3's ghost will be staying around to haunt us for years to come is BMW hasn't given up the design of the i3. There's a concept car, most of you may have seen it, called the Circular, which is their future concept electric vehicle. Now the interior of this thing is hideous and is never going to see the light of day. But look at the body design. Suicide doors, no B-pillar, compact hatch vehicle. There's a lot of the i3 hidden in here, all right? Straight down to some of the aesthetics. Even though it looks very different, it still has that sort of like furniture design versus car interior design. The next of the i3's ghost is the MX-30 made by Mazda that I mentioned earlier. Again, no B-pillar suicide door design, right? Compact hatch design. It's very much a copy of the i3 in a lot of ways. Straight down to a short range, right? Mazda made the conscious decision, which I appreciate, by the way, of not seeing how expensive they can make an EV, because this is the problem that EVs have right now, is it's always their high end, right? Nobody makes an EV Civic, right? Or a Ford Escort EV. They're not looking for the low-end cars. They're putting them in bigger, higher-end cars. And in this case, they said, hey, let's put less battery and in exchange for having a lower starting price. And it does ring in at $33,900. So this is their trade-off that they made. Interesting thing that they're doing this with the range, though, because here's the reality. Range anxiety was always such a thing, and people want to have longer range to feel more safe and secure, but the reality of it is you don't need that much range. So far, we've talked about how its image will stay around. We've talked about how its design is going to be staying around for some time. Now let's talk about the name, because the truth of it is BMW will indeed be making another i3. In order to understand what that means, you have to be familiar with the BMW naming structure.
BMW divides their vehicles into class and trim. For example, the X class is their SUV, which they describe as SAV for Sport Activity Vehicle. The next class is a Z class, which stands for Zukunft, which is German for future. This makes up their roadster models, the Z4, Z3. On the trim level, usually you have either a number like 328 or 335 for their sedans, or you'll have the designator of M, which is their sports class. I-Series, this gets a bit more complicated because they were originally their own class, the i3 and the i8, but now is shifting over to a trim level, as you see in the case of the i4, which is basically a 4 Series, but with electric drivetrain. BMW also has an upcoming 7 Series electric sedan. They'll be designated the i7, and they have just announced that they'll have an electric X1 designated iX1. So of course, when BMW makes a electric 3 Series, it will be called the i3.
For my video on the afterlife of the BMW i3, I hope you enjoyed it. Definitely, if you have any comments, I would love to hear them.
And now it's time to shout out my new subscribers, Matt and Danny Scallion. Thanks for subscribing. If you would like to get a subscriber shout out, just go ahead and subscribe, and either make sure your name is visible in your subscription, or go ahead and put it down in the comments section and I'll give you a shout out. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day.